Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. All right, Ron Rivera is talking right now to the media live. So let's head down to Ashburn off of the win over the Falcons yesterday and listen in to the head coach.
Hey, Ron, I want to start off one of the things that you guys talked about in the locker room after yesterday, but I'm curious if you had a chance to talk to Charles and just how he's doing.
He's doing well. It was a very personal family situation, and it's a very unfortunate situation, but he's doing well. They're doing well.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm sure a lot of people would be happy with that. Also, looking at the game yesterday, then, and that Cinco package, I know it's very scheme specific. Why do you feel it was so successful yesterday?
Well, I think one of the things that we did was it's really, if you look at it, it's really just a 3-4 defense. But what it allows us to do is bring in another bigger body, a guy to play the what amounts to basically a 4 technique for the most part if you were playing a true 3-4. And when you got that extra big body up inside, it does impact their want and their desire to try and run the football. It frees up the linebackers a little bit more to run. Obviously, it's not ideal if they start running some play action and stuff like that and drop back pass, but it still gives us a real stout presence to help stop the run. And we really felt that was something they were going to try and do against us. You want to mute yourself?
Ron, how did you feel Danny Johnson did coming in, and stepping in for Emmanuel Forbes? And did his performance warrant sort of not a longer look? You know who he is, but continued playing time for him.
Well, I think, first of all, I thought Danny stepped in and did exactly what we hoped he would do, did the job that we needed him to do. He came out and played some good football, made some plays, and he's a very smart football player, which you can tell by the opportunity to intercept the ball on 4th down. Instead, he knocks it down, and we get in great field position. I mean, that's a very heads-up play, and those are the kinds of things that, Danny's very capable of. As far as play time, we're going to continue to practice and work our guys, and we're going to play the guys we believe it gives us the best opportunity to play football.
Ron, yesterday's win against Atlanta, that was true complimentary football, all 3 phases, as you mentioned. I'm sure it's easier said than done, but how do you bottle that up and kind of carry that over week to week, all 3 phases making big impacts on a win?
Well, we'll continue to work and practice all 3 phases, and with the emphasis that, they have to be, explosive, dynamic. They have to take opportunities and make the most of them. And I think that's the biggest thing that you saw from the complimentary football was, every phase did what they were supposed to do, needed to do, and it's, just something you got to continue to practice with and continue to work on and talk about.
That do your job mantra, the mentality that you kind of instilled and drove home last week, is that going to remain this week, or do you plan on switching it up? Is this going to be new, different messaging week to week, or the do your job is going to kind of be the main thing?
Well, I think off of do your job would be the messaging more than anything else, Scott. I think a lot of things, that when you look at each game has its own personality, and I try to figure out what I think the personality is for that week, and as we go through it, that's what we'll try to do with the players and harp on the things that we think that need to be done and things that we need to get better at and improve on as we prepare to play the Giants.
Ron, he didn't drop back as much as he had in games past, but when you went back and looked at him, what did you think of Sam?
Oh, I thought Sam was very efficient. That's probably the best way to put the way he played. His decision-making was, for the most part, really good. There's a couple times, obviously, I'd like to see him get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker and not take the hits or sacks that he did. But I thought his quarterback rating was over 100, which was very good, because his decision-making was good. He protected the football, delivered some very catchable balls. There were a couple of balls I still feel we could have had completed, and we didn't, unfortunately. But I think, again, protecting the football and making decisions that he did, I thought he handled those very well.
And with the defense, obviously, you guys made some changes yesterday for a lot of different reasons. If you're playing a team that isn't as run heavy, isn't as kind of playing the way that they play. Do you feel like you still found things yesterday that will help the defense moving forward that you can stick with going forward?
Oh, very much so. But, again, I think each game is really based on how the defensive coaches and Jack see them. I mean, Jack and the coaches, they're going to come together. They're going to work on things, going to talk about the best way to attack the opponent. And, those are things that we look at each week. I mean, the packages are based on what we believe we need to stop and we need to take away. And that's how you really design it. I mean, from whether you're going to be in a four-man front or a five-man front, is going to be determined the type of running game they have and who they got running the football. I mean, if they're a downhill inside the tackles type of team, with two tight ends out there, there's a good chance we're going to bulk up. And so, we're gonna do things based on what the defensive coaches think is going to be best for us.
Thank you.
Hey, Ron, just to build on that for a second, you guys brought pressure in key situations, and I know there's this line of thought, right? You've got all these first-round picks on the defensive line. They don't need help. What does that do, though, when you mix it up, show a little different look, bring somebody from the secondary?
Mike, I think if we do anything as far as mixing it up, what it does show is that there's always that ability, there's always that capability to bring the extra guy if you need be. One of the things that we do, intentionally is when we do the five-man, we do bring the fifth guy a lot. We do drop the fifth guy as well, so that does seem to help us when we do have to go into the bigger packages. So doing that, whether we're in the bigger packages or our base four-man front, I think it adds a little bit more to the thinking process of our opponent.
Hey, Ron, any
Sorry, go ahead.
Any updates on Duran or Montez? Both of them had some kind of injuries yesterday?
No. When I finish with this, we have a coaching staff meeting, and that's when I'll get my update from Al. I know a lot of the players came in today, got whatever treatment they needed. I don't know specifically any of that. I've been in meetings right now with the coaches, with the coaching staff, as far as those things are concerned, watching tape. And meeting on personnel, and so I've been kind of stuck with that. And like I said, at 4 o'clock I'll get more of an update as far as what's going on with the guys as far as specific injuries.
Okay. And with regards to Jahan, obviously everybody can't get all the catches every game, but obviously his production has been off of last year. What are you kind of seeing with him right now?
I think it's just a matter of time. I mean, again, as we continue to work and try and distribute the ball to all the players. It'll happen. It's just one of those things that, sometimes guys will be targeted more. I mean, I promise you, back in the day, when Gary Clark, Art Monk, and, Ricky Sanders were out there for Coach Gibbs, you guys were probably wondering, well, how come he only got 3 balls and everybody else got 6 or 7? I mean, it's going to happen. And so when a guy's not getting the balls right now, it's just a matter of time. And I think that's the thing we all have to be patient with. I mean, this is a good group of receivers, and I'm not saying that, they're that group, but they're a good group, and we're going to distribute the ball, based on game plans and who our opponents are. And again, it starts with the quarterback's decision making too.
Ron, we don't usually ask you much about this guy, but Casey Tuhill has 3 sacks. I mean, what does he bring to the line? And what have you seen out of him this year? Well,
probably the one thing that, if you go back and look at the plays that Casey has made, first and foremost, they're all based off of, him getting after the quarterback, off of play action. The 2 that I'm thinking of from yesterday, very disciplined player who's in the right spot. He works his technique. He's got a good little burst to him. He closes ground very quickly, and he's got length. That's one of the things. He's stout. He, if there was one thing I was really pleased with that we did on defense, and I know Jack and and Skinine and Ryan preached to our D line was setting vertical edges, and if you watch those guys, how disciplined they all were, trying to keep that run play from getting outside, trying to keep it bottled up. Those guys did that, and Casey was one of the guys that did that, and because of that, he got the opportunities and he made the most of them.
A couple more. Hey, Ron, back to Emmanuel Forbes. Obviously, being a first-round pick, the mental gymnastics he's probably going through in terms of, I'm starting, I'm playing a lot, now I'm not playing a lot. How has he handled this transitional period of not playing. What have you seen from his approach and his attitude?
Well, I think he's been great. He really has. He and I had a conversation last week as to what was going on. Just explained to him that we feel right now a little time down would help you. Good chance to kind of take a step back and watch it and see how things are done, see a little different perspective. And again, he's been really good so far, and I expect him to continue. He's a young pro who's got a lot to learn and a lot of growth to have, but he's got a chance. We really think this young man's got a great skill set and can be a good football player. It's just this might take a little bit more time.
Anybody else?
Hey, Coach, just wanted to ask, going into Sunday's game, how much confidence does it give you going in 3-3 instead of 2-4 going into Week 7?
Well, we have a little momentum, Moses, and I think that's one of the biggest things. And if you can maintain the momentum and keep the excitement going, and energy levels up, the players really feed off of it. And one of the things that I said too, that is when you watch the tape and really break some of the things down, you see just how efficient Sam was, and I think that's something we can build on because of the momentum of when we're efficient, when we're doing things well. And then on the defensive side, keeping the momentum of being able to stop the run. They're going to come in. They have Saquon, and we know how special he is as a running back. We got to be able to contain him. We got to be able to contain the quarterback. So a lot of those things that we did on Sunday are things that are going to be reflected in what we're going to need to do this coming Sunday as well. So I think it's a good opportunity to build on the success we had. But we also got to be smart and understand, that even though we went out and did our jobs, we got to pay attention and focus in on and continue to focus in on the details of our job. Do those things better. Do the little things better. And because we had a lot of mistakes, a lot of little things that can be corrected, and that's the best part about it, is those things can be corrected.
All right. Last one. Ron, I know you guys focus on every week you want to win and you're focusing on the week ahead, but given the last couple of years where you guys have been in a trail position in the standings going into the rest of the year, or it's been even and you need some things to work out, is this stretch or is not getting into that position again, is that important over this next 4 or 5 weeks?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Sam, that's important is really maintaining the focus of one at a time. Just trying to stay connected to where we are, and where we are right now. To Moses' point, is we're 3-3. We have an opportunity to go to 4-3 if we go out and play the football we're capable of and win a football game against the Giants. So to get ahead of that, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure we stay focused on the one game at a time mentality and just understand it's the most important game we're going to play all year. Why? Because this is the game we will play. So we're going to keep that focus.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ron.
Okay, that is Ron Rivera live. Okay, so that's the recap. Not much there, honestly. There wasn't really much to recap. So let's get into the game here a little bit.
Sure.
There's no updates on any injuries or anything like that yet. Deron Payne did dislocate his finger late in the game, but did come back in. Yep. I saw him in the locker room, says he's okay, and honestly, he probably is. Montez Sweat hurt his thumb, did come back in, but then was rotated out regularly.
Yeah.
So he's one to watch this week to see if that's going to be able to be something he can play with or not. So I don't have any information on that. Emmanuel Forbes was discussed too. I'll get into that in a little bit. He did not play one single defensive snap, which was
right.
A little bit lower than what I expected. I thought he would get on the field. I was a little bit surprised he did not, but we can get into that in a little bit. Let's just kind of high overarching. One, I'm glad they won.
Okay. Yes.
I'm glad they won.
Obvious one. Yeah. There. Yes.
Well, for not just because it would have been 2-4, but 2-4 where there's too many vultures circling.
Yeah. Right.
That realistic, I mean, we all know what's on the line here for everybody. We all know what's on the line here. And however this thing plays out for the course of the season, it can't spiral now.
Right.
If it spirals now, it's going to put this team in a very, very difficult position. And I mean, across the board, difficult position. Mm-hmm. There's going to be pressure on the new ownership to make changes, which won't make any sense if you go and actually look at the staff. Two, if they were to make those changes, which this is why I'm glad they won, there's only one logical person that would get the job. And then the national media would be sitting there wondering, is he going to get fired as an interim coach? And considering what has been the campaign to get him a head coaching job in the first place, it's going to put this ownership group in an awkward position, right? So I don't expect any of that stuff to happen. The players, as we discussed a lot in the offseason, there are a lot of them on contracts.
Right.
And up in contract years.
Expiring contracts.
Expiring contracts. So if things go haywire, you've got every man for himself.
Sounds familiar.
Because
Wizards, bruh.
Because, and I won't blame them, their agents are going to be telling them, look, man, you got to do what's right for you because I'm taking you to the market and maybe this new ownership will re-sign you, but maybe they won't.
Sure.
You got to look good. So it tunes everybody out. It just would be crazy town. So them winning yesterday stops that.
Yep.
And if they could just kind of hang in there, okay, forget turning it around, okay, just hang in there, then, and let's see where we are, come Thanksgiving, really.
Sure.
Then, if we just keep the season alive, it keeps everybody engaged and makes the vultures sit in the trees for a while.
Yeah, right.
And
exactly.
I think that's why it's important because, frankly, like yesterday, here's how I came out of it. One, the defense made the plays they needed to make. I don't know what in the world Atlanta's thinking having Desmond Ridder throw the ball 47 times.
Ridiculous.
That is crazy. Okay, so that's on them, and that's why they lost. I will give, like Rivera mentioned this, someone brought up the edge contain. I thought it was the best of the season with the running game. It was very important to slow them down, and the numbers were pretty good. I felt as if Washington's defense was starting to wear down, but Atlanta ran 79 plays and Washington ran 50. There's a lot here that did not add up to a win.
Correct.
Which is why I'll just go back to, I'm glad that they won because they were not necessarily the better team. They made some good plays against an inexperienced quarterback. And for some reason, Atlanta did what Washington did a week ago. Like, it made no sense for them to throw the ball as much as they did, but they chose to. And it bit them in the end. And I'm taking nothing away. We made 3 great plays to get interceptions. One, the last play by Jamin was outstanding. The play by Fuller was singularly outstanding. The play by St. Juste was because they dialed up the pressure at the exact right time. So I would give the defense a full credit.
Sure.
And they basically got 5 turnovers because Atlanta turned it over twice on downs.
Yes.
So they got 5 turnovers yesterday. Of course you're going to win. But listen to the stats. Atlanta ran 79 plays. Washington ran 50. Total yards, 402 to 193. Passing, 296 to 121. Yards per play, 5.1 to 3.9. If it's not for the turnovers, Washington loses big.
Yep. Right.
In fact, the game's not close.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's not. So I'm happy they won. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. The defense made the plays they needed to make in crunch time, which is what was happening last year, actually. I actually thought the defense, game plan-wise, was better this week than it's been in weeks, which I think is exemplified by turnovers created and keeping scoring down for the first time in a while. This was one of those I walked in and I went, that team averages 16 points a game. We're giving up 32. Let's find out what really gives here.
Sure, yeah.
This is also the 4th week in a row where a number 1 receiver torched them, even with the change.
Yep, exactly.
Drake London had 9 for 125. He didn't score a touchdown, but he did. The week before, DJ Moore put up numbers that no one's put up against a Washington defense since the 1960s. The week before that, A.J. Brown embarrassed Emmanuel Forbes over and over and over. And the week before that, Stephon Diggs was unstoppable against them.
Yep.
These guys are who they are for a reason. They are really, really good players, and maybe London's heading in that direction. We'll see. And they're going to get their numbers, but it's every week we get torched by a number 1 receiver. The good news was they, for some reason, induced Atlanta to throw the ball way more than they ever should have. So that's good on Washington for inducing them to do that. 2, Bijan Robinson did not hurt them.
Right. In fact, they started splitting the carries with Algier. So,
well, they've been doing that all year, actually.
Okay. Either way, like you would have thought, though, against this defense that is reeling, you put it in your hands of your best playmaker as many times as possible.
When I rewatch this tonight, and I think Arthur Smith ought to think about this too, I think he's going to see that the Washington defense had worn down by about the middle of the 3rd quarter. And when they were running the ball, they were starting to get 4 or 5 yards a clip.
Yep.
Right. And Algier's very tough. This is why they're kind of like the Eagles a little bit. If they get a lead on you, it's very difficult. They don't score prolifically, which is the problem for them. But if they ever do get a lead, they're going to wear you down with that running game. With those 2 running backs in that line, they're going to wear you down. That was happening yesterday. And they made mistakes with Ritter's arm. And thankfully, they did.
Right.
Because we're back to 3-3. Everything's back on the table. All the pressure is going to be on Washington this week. They're going to go up there as a favorite against a 1-5 team. If they can manage and get through, then, this Eagles rematch will be interesting because the Eagles just lost and they're playing Miami this weekend. So who knows, right? Who knows?
Right.
So we'll see what that is. But, I think largely I'm just relieved because honestly, were they the better team yesterday? I don't know. But they won.
Right.
They took advantage of the weakness of the other team. That's why I don't want to take anything away from them. But statistically, when you look at what really happened yesterday, Atlanta dominated possession of the ball, dominated in yardage. They just screwed up at critical moments, honestly. That's all it really is.
Turnovers and not converting when they decided to actually go for it.
Yes.
And I didn't understand a few of them, too, because the score was never out of hand, where it was like, why are you being aggressive at home like this when the team that you're playing against, by the way, has effed up so many times over the last couple of weeks? You should kind of wait for them to F up, and instead, they were the ones shooting themselves in the foot. It was actually really just odd to watch because it was like, you're not playing, the Chiefs here where you need to go for it a few times to try to get a victory. And the fact, too, was Howell didn't turn the ball over either. It was kind of like, okay, Ritter, you're going to throw 3 picks. If our guy doesn't, we're going to win this thing. And that's exactly how it shook out.
Yes. I'm going to talk about this on the other side, but for the second straight game, and this one really makes no sense. Washington completely got away from the run again.
Yeah,
Now, they ended up having near 50-50, but they were very heavy pass when they built the lead.
Yep.
And they were it was a little more in line with what I expect. They came out throwing the ball a lot early. Time of possession, Falcons 36 minutes, 23 seconds, Washington 23-37. They're very fortunate to get away with a win here.
Sure.
When we rewatch this, you're going to see, and Atlanta's going to be kicking themselves that they put the ball in Ritter's hands as many times as they did.
Absolutely.
Because as the game was moving along, the run game started to become very difficult for Washington to stop. They had the ball too often. They were carrying it too much. Their run game can be elite at times. I know it was a little frustrating they weren't popping off the big runs that I think they're starting to try to get accustomed to, but they got away from it, put it in hands of a quarterback, and it was a mistake. And we'll take it. I'm not complaining about a win. We'll take it. But it's not like Washington, dominated them.
Right.
Actually, far from it. It was completely the opposite. It was just turnovers. All right, I want to get into Hal's performance, getting away from the running game again, Emmanuel Forbes, and all the other things from the game yesterday next. Bram Washington Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, welcome back. All right, let's go over some of the details of the Commanders' win over the Falcons yesterday, 24-16, which in large part, I would say, good on the defense for what I thought was one of their better game plans of the year. Mm-hmm. They were very set on the edge. The do-your-job stuff got through. They did not allow any major runs. Bijan Robinson is a hold-your-breath type of player. Algier is an outstanding, more like a battering ram, but outstanding. Their line, which I don't think is performing as well as it did a year ago, is still very, very good. So everything kind of bounces off of their run game. I think, not unlike how Washington kind of lost its way against the Bears, where they just threw the ball 8 million times, I think the Falcons are going to look back at this and go, I don't know what we were thinking having Ritter throw the ball 47 times against them. And
absolutely.
It's their own fault that they lost.
Right. Exactly. I mean, that like I said, that was a game where you let the other team mess up a number of times, and as long as you just sit back and let them do that, you're golden. And that's exactly what happened. And there was, it didn't really matter at the end of the game, but why did you go for 2 at the end?
I didn't understand that either. I think I said something on the air where I'm like, I don't get this, but you all do you.
Right.
Because I don't know what you're thinking doing this.
I was out watching the game before.
They got lucky they got a second chance at it, too, because that was not a penalty.
Yes. And I was out watching the game with a couple of people, and they were like, what do they think this is Madden or something? Are you just going for it to go for it? Because it makes no sense. And then you also couldn't win the game. On the second touchdown,
I think if you took
again.
the extra point, you're down 7 and you do score, I guess you could make a choice. Do you want to go for 2 and win or tie it? You can make that choice. The way it was going for them, the way it had turned, I would have been going to try to get them to overtime because Washington was out of gas.
Yeah.
I think they were out of gas. They were on the field way more. All right, let's start on the offense. Brian Robinson again got 10 carries.
Yeah.
At one point, they were up by 2 touchdowns in this game
Correct.
in the second half. I'm confused by this.
Yep.
I'm just confused by this.
Especially because he's effective. It's not like he's not playing well.
Every
time he's going downhill, he's trucking 3 dudes.
I mean, the per rush average is not great. I mean, it's 3.1 again. And, last week was really hard to tell because he got so few carries.
Yeah.
But I feel like he is our version of Robinson or Algier, where you really got to keep giving the ball to him because he gets better as it goes along. And as a defense wears down, that's where his numbers kind of pick up. He's a classic power running back. And I think he is their best asset right now and has been really since the start of the year. I'll get to some of the other ones that aren't getting the ball enough. But like in his case, I can't come up with an excuse for him carrying the ball 10 times a game. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
The touchdown was great. They found him on that. I got to give Hal a lot of credit. I think that was a designed screen. I got to look at it again. I'm pretty sure it was a designed screen, but because there was pressure up the middle so quickly, he had to escape the pocket, but still stuck with it and found him. And once, he got out into open space, the finish was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, the finish was this second time against the Eagles, same thing. We had the fumble, but he shivered some guy at the goal line. Robinson wants the ball, wants to punish people for trying to tackle him. I think has gotten better as a running back. Like I've seen the improvement in him. Like of all the success stories under Bieniemy, he's a number one to me. Like he's gotten better and better, which is the part of which where I'm like, we know we're not a great pass protection unit. He's getting better and better. He becomes a battering ram for you late. When you're down 27-3, I will hear you out. You can't run the ball a lot. When you're up 24-10 on the road, I don't understand it.
Yep. Right.
I just don't. I don't understand how he ends up with 10 carries.
We are starting, at least the pattern has emerged now with Bieniemy. And this is it is a criticism of Bieniemy. I'm not saying he's the worst offensive coordinator in the world. Don't misconstrue me here. But Bieniemy now screams to me.
No, Hal's numbers are very good.
No.
So and Robinson's numbers when he gets that's the point of this conversation. When he gets opportunities are very good. This isn't Natty Hacks in Denver last year.
No.
We're actually scoring and probably could score more.
But Bieniemy is doing the thing that we see happen with coordinators where they get too wrapped up in their own crap. And instead of taking one step back and going, let's look at the situation. We're up by 2 touchdowns. We're on the road. We're reeling. We can't blow this game. Don't turtle, but use one of your best playmakers to help that scenario.
Yeah.
And instead, we're getting a bunch of dropbacks again and some cute plays where it's like, dude, just settle down a little bit and you're going to win the game. Like I said, some coordinators get really wrapped up in their own stuff, and I think he's been doing that lately.
I mean, in fairness, they were actually pass heavy early. And at what we were winning, and London said on the air, he's like, I like what we're doing. And I just turned to him and I go, you like it because we're winning.
Yeah.
Last week we were complaining this is what they were doing. Mm-hmm. But because they're winning, you're okay with winning cures everything. Winning's okay. And to their credit, they actually ran the ball more in the second half. And they used Rodriguez a couple times, which I thought was fine.
Yeah, he looked good.
Totally
looked really
fine.
Good, actually.
He's fresh. He's off this illness. He missed a couple of weeks. His body probably feels pretty good. I still, though, don't understand, why is Robinson not getting the ball more? 10 feels low, especially in a game where you're front running by 2 touchdowns in the second half on the road against a team that's not stout up front. I think I think, we know that this is not a great pass protection unit to start with. 2, you keep telling me over and over how much you're trying to protect this young rookie quarterback.
Yep, right.
The easiest way to help him is maybe take a little off of his plate and run the ball more. I think the offensive linemen would appreciate that too because we're better at this. I know, if you watched Atlanta yesterday, the attrition was catching up. They run the ball so well early. I thought Washington was outstanding against the run, really just outstanding against it. And as time was progressing, the attrition was getting to them. The tables had turned. And they were getting the push up front. Every run was going for 4 or 5 yards. Algier was battering them. This can be us too. This is what we were under Rivera for the last couple of years when he finally goes, enough's enough, we're going to run the ball more.
Yep.
What I think is interesting this year is he isn't signaling that. He's not saying it. He's not demanding anything. So I don't know what's up with that.
Well, he can't. I mean, that's the problem.
Sure,
here.
he can. He's the head coach.
I mean,
he's the head coach.
But you and I both know what's going to happen if he tries to, say that. It's going to be, interpreted as, Ron couldn't let Bieniemy do what he wanted to do, and then all of a sudden it sets off a bunch of people defending Bieniemy. Like, it sets off a narrative for the national media, which we know Ron likes to control that narrative, that I don't think he's going to want to deal with. And
that's not good. He's the head coach.
Yes. Correct.
Ron Rivera is the head coach of the team. Ron Rivera dictates what this team is or is not.
Sure.
Period.
I agree with you. But
when you hired Bieniemy, the risk was you better be hands off because there's been a campaign to make him a head coach for a number of years now.
Right.
And now that he's been hired and given this power, you better not, give off any idea that you're usurping any of it. But his title is assistant head coach, not head coach.
Right.
And Ron Rivera is as old school as it gets. He wants you to run the ball. We know this. Mm-hmm. They're actually, I think they got a better shot to have a more prolific pass offense, which I'll get into in a moment, because their arguably best receiver doesn't get targeted.
Yeah, right.
So there's another thing I'd like to talk about. Mm-hmm. But, just to finish my point on the other thing, it just is this, if to me, he's not been shy to say, hey, I think we need to run the ball more at times. And Brian Robinson should not be getting 10 carries a game. Not when you're winning and not when you're leading on the road. That's my opinion.
Right.
Personally.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
All right. Jahan Dotson. Now, this has been a problem for a couple of years. They have too many good options. And I said this last year with Scott. I'm like, there are going to be weeks where certain guys aren't going to get the ball. And we need to understand that that's going to happen. But going into the game yesterday, Jahan Dotson had, on average, through 5 games, so a third of the season, 2 catches for 29 yards. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, he got targeted once, and granted, it should have been a pretty decent-sized play. He dropped it, okay? But that's the only target that he saw.
Yeah.
This is also on the offensive coordinator to dial up things to get this guy the ball. I appreciate we're not ignoring Terry anymore, and we shouldn't.
And they dialed it up for him yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'll get to that in a moment, too. But, Jahan Dotson literally not figuring into the offensive game plan, I know that it's more complicated than that, but this should not be happening.
I agree. I mean, it's
Come on.
It's also now, once again, when it rains, it pours with this team with personnel. Okay, Ron, I'll hear you that you've had some hits here. One of your first-round hits is Dotson. And
Jahan
yet you're not
Dotson is an elite route runner.
And yet you're not using him. So once again...
He's also had 2 drops in the last couple of weeks, or probably the first 2 drops I can remember him having since being drafted last year. He also is largely ignored in the offense.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, too. It's not like he is being thrown any opportunities. Literally, he is not. And so once again, when your own draft picks that you drafted and they are your personnel aren't contributing, you're going to have a bad time. And here we are, where it's who are you bringing in that's actually contributing at this point right now?
Listen, I feel okay complaining after a win because the coaches do it forever.
Yeah,
and I found a lot wrong with this.
Yes. Well, especially
Brian Robinson is underutilized. He's not being utilized. He's just underutilized, in my opinion. He's been their best asset. He was the one by the end of camp where I went, you need to give that guy the ball. They're good there. We already know their pass protection is going to be wonky at best. So run the ball, establish it. And you know what? He gets better as the games go along. And you saw it with Atlanta yesterday. When you have someone like this, as the game drags on and teams start to get worn down, they want nothing to do with that guy.
Yep.
Nothing to do with him anymore. But they get away from it.
Right.
They get away from it. And Dotson, I'm sorry. 1 target? Come on. How's that even possible?
It's a little ridiculous.
Okay. So yesterday, Terry was targeted 11 times, 6 catches, 81 yards. He had a very good game.
Yeah.
A few of the incompletions were bad passes. I will tell you, and I need to rewatch to really feel this way, but I walked out of there going, this was the first time that I felt like Sam Howell at times in a game was forcing.
Okay.
That he was forcing something. When everybody last week was like, Logan Thomas is the most targeted player, can you explain that to us? And I walked out of it going, you know what? I actually think Hal is taking what the defense is giving him. And you know what? That's what I want my quarterback to do. I want him to read the play and take the best option and stay out of trouble plays. And I don't have a problem with that. I trust him, actually.
Right.
Like, does he not get rid of the ball fast enough sometimes? Yeah, he took a couple sacks yesterday where he didn't get rid of the ball fast enough. Okay. Like, has he taken unnecessary hits? Yeah, a lot of them. A lot less yesterday. Mm-hmm. They also only ran 50 plays.
Right.
Right? So, a lot less yesterday. There were a couple moments he literally ran out of bounds, and I went, thank God. He's like, stop taking these crazy hits. You don't have to do that. But largely, his decision-making, yes, he's had some picks. Everybody makes mistakes. Largely, I like his decision-making.
Right.
Yesterday was the first time that I felt like he forced a few, especially in the second half. He had misses with McLaurin where they were just off.
Yeah.
He threw into double coverage once. I haven't seen him do a lot of that. And he threw one to McLaurin that was off late that would have basically sealed the game had they gotten a first down. But it was the first time that I felt like he was forcing it. Is that because that's the message coming down? Is that because he just decided I'm going to go to McLaurin because he's been the trusted person? I trust him to make his reads. I guess what I'm getting to is this all still feels like a massive work in progress.
Well, I think when it does come to McLaurin, at least, I mean, look at what Heineke did. Every quarterback has just learned you get the ball into the vicinity of that guy, and he'll come down with it most of the time. I think that's where maybe Hal was kind of deciding to force it to McLaurin, because it's the joke, right? F it. He's down there somewhere.
Yes.
And he usually comes down with it. And so maybe
I feel like Hal is ahead of the curve with his reads. Like, I don't feel like he locks into people. I feel like I'm really high on him.
Right.
Like, yes, he's a young quarterback. Yes, he's taking too many sacks. Yes, he's thrown a few too many picks. He's really taking unnecessary hits. A lot, but his decision-making in general, to me, I'm very bullish about, which is why I think with experience, he will get better and better and better. Yesterday was the first time I saw him forcing things, and I'm surprised. I was surprised to see it. And then you look at the stat sheet, and you're like, Jahan Dotson just didn't get the time of day. Robinson's not included in a way that I think all of us agree should be. This is a work in progress. That said, they scored 24 points yesterday, albeit 2 of them on short fields.
That's correct. Yeah, every time they scored, it was because either the defense
the Crowder punt return.
The punt return, yep.
The Crowder punt return, the first interception put him at the 27.
Yep.
Like, 2 of the scores were short fields.
Right.
And granted, I want to give them credit. They paid it off.
Yeah, they cashed in.
They paid it off. And I don't think largely, like, I'm down on the offense, but go look at the stats. They ran 50 plays. They amassed 193 yards.
Right.
That loses most weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That loses most weeks. If they didn't have a quarterback turn the ball over to the degree that they did, they would have lost yesterday too. So I think we're all still, and again, it's game 6 with this new offense and the young quarterback. And I just know there's no way, even if Ron is not doing what he usually does, which is signal it's time to start doing it my way a little bit. He's refraining from doing that. I'm not shy in saying this is a work in progress. They're figuring out how to work together because this is still off.
Yeah.
There's no way this is on yet. All right, we'll get to the defensive side of the ball next. Brave Washington Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. All right, let's keep going over the Commanders' win over the Falcons 24-16. If the season, even all that said about like work in progress with the offense, I'll get to the defense in a minute. As you probably could tell because there was chaos in the league yesterday, the Giants would have, could have, should have beat the Bills in Buffalo last night with a backup quarterback as bad as they've been.
Yep.
Right? The Jets beat the Eagles and beat them. Like that wasn't a fluke.
Yep.
The Browns got a little lucky, but they would have lost with a backup quarterback at the buzzer on a last-second field goal. So they were right there with the 49ers. Yeah, so they won. They won. And there were a lot of other close calls. So this league is very close. So I don't want to take anything away. A win is very hard to get here. If this season does turn... So what I'm trying to get to is it's possible that, everything will start to come together. I'm willing to believe that the work in progress will pay itself off into becoming, that they'll get good at things.
Yep.
And if it does turn around, then the season will have turned on Jamison Crowder because that punt return flipped the momentum of the game immediately. They paid it off very quickly. It took off from there for a couple of quarters. The only time I started to get concerned was late third quarter into the fourth quarter. The Falcons had the ball so much that their run game was starting to wear down the Washington defense.
Yeah.
And I felt like if they didn't throw the ball as much as they did, we would have been in trouble yesterday, but they made the choices they made. Our defense clearly scouted them very well, ended up making, 3 humongous plays in the second half and 2 late. The Jamin Davis play was outstanding. The St. Jude's play, which I thought was a coordinated, great call defensive effort play, was great. And we got away with a win. And I don't care how you get it, even if the stats say you should have lost, I'll take it. But if everything turns, that we're going to look back at that Crowder return and go, that was it.
Oh, 100%, especially just because of how pretty much since they have when they didn't re-sign DeAndre Carter, they've gotten 0 out of the return game, both punt and kickoffs.
Yes.
And the fact
the
that
kickoffs are, you return 10% of them, maybe.
So
teams have to choose to let you do it now.
Goes without saying, but you know what I mean, though. Like, they never had a threat back there.
That's right.
It was their job is to catch the ball, and we're all kind of like, really? Like, that's all you're going to say about
Crowder nearly popped one against the Bears last week.
Right.
Like, he's had 3 weeks in a row where he's had good ones.
Right.
And this one was a great one.
Yeah.
And, too bad he didn't score. It was funny. Like, the last time they had a return touchdown was in Atlanta a couple years ago. That was Carter's return of a kickoff for a touchdown. That was the first time that they'd had one. They haven't had a punt return for a touchdown since Crowder did it against the Ravens 7 years ago.
Got it.
So he almost did it again. Anyway. All right. So, but if the season turns, because I'm glad we won while we figure this all out. Sure. That will be the play to me that will have turned the season. Not unlike years and years and years ago when LeVar had the interception and Marty at 0-5 turned the season around. Yeah. I'm open to the idea that they're going to get it together.
Go to the 2005 season where they beat the Cowboys with those last 2 touchdowns.
Right.
It was an abysmal start to the season for the first 6 quarters, and then Brunell throws 2 bombs and it turned the whole entire thing around. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Defensively, obviously, they get a lot of credit for, making the plays that they did. They got 3 interceptions in the second half. They got 2 turnovers on downs. They stopped a 2-point conversion that Atlanta got a second chance at the 1-yard line and shouldn't have gotten. Yep. So I want to give them all due credit. In the situational moments, they came up huge. Outside of that, though, here are, concerns. Emmanuel Forbes did not get a snap. Mm-hmm. I think it was described to me as a reset. Last week, Friday, when I talked to Coach Rivera, he had, warned me as, getting ready for the game, don't expect to see him play a lot. I did not get the sense that he would not play at all. He didn't say that, but he was just prepping me for he's not going to be out there a lot, and we want to give him a reset. And I think it's necessary after the last couple of weeks. I was surprised that he didn't get on the field at all, but I guess things were going well, and they didn't want to.
You know how this
goes.
They
don't want to mess with it.
Maybe if there's a plan sometimes, and sometimes that plan gets thrown out if you don't like what you're seeing, or you do like what you're seeing in some cases.
Yes. Danny Johnson's very steady. He's reliable. He's been reliable. He doesn't have the high-end talent that Forbes has, the speed or the hands or all that stuff. But, as they like to say, do your job, and Danny knows his.
Yes.
He was the weirdest cut at the end of summer last year when they went with 2 young corners and didn't keep him. That didn't make any sense, at the time. So fortunately, he's there. I thought he played pretty well. He's where he is supposed to be. So that was the good news. We'll see with Forbes. I'm waiting to see what happens here. It's an interesting week this week. The Giants' passing game has been god-awful. Mm-hmm. So is this an opportunity to put him back out there to get his feet wet again? I don't know. Do they trust him not to give up a big play against a team that could use a big play in the worst way possible? They haven't scored an offensive touchdown in a month?
Right.
In a month.
Yes.
Not one.
I thought it was for the season.
I think it was 13 or 14 consecutive quarters.
Okay, all right.
They must have scored an offensive touchdown at some point.
No, it's they haven't scored an offensive touchdown in the first half all year.
All year?
Yep.
All year, but they've scored enough.
Yes.
I saw the stat I saw last night was 13 or 14 consecutive quarters that they haven't had an offensive touchdown.
But a first half touchdown, offensive
right, because
touchdown.
they had, who was it? When they played Miami, I think they had a pick 6, right? So they scored there. They had a pick 6 in that game. Okay, here's a couple other things. The linebackers actually played relatively well in this one. I know they were getting a lot of heat. It was funny when the Cody Barton thing came up last week, and I'm like, I don't know what you guys are watching, but the first couple of weeks weren't great, but he's actually not been bad the last couple of weeks. He had 14 tackles yesterday.
Yeah, right.
So y'all shut your faces.
I thought Carl had a really good game yesterday.
He was outstanding.
He was all over the place.
He was best player on defense yesterday.
He was missile yesterday.
8 solo tackles.
Yeah.
How about Kendall Fuller? 9 solo tackles yesterday.
Fuller's been put together a really good year and a half.
Yes.
I mean, just been outstanding in all facets.
Kendall Fuller, 9 solo tackles, had the interception as well.
Yep.
Outstanding. All right. The defensive line. This wait till you hear this, because this is actually, I actually thought this was, I've been saying this kind of quietly the last few weeks. I've been wondering where John Allen's been.
Yep.
He just hasn't impacted games the last few weeks. I think that's a big deal. Your best players, and he's one of them, need to impact games. He hasn't the last few weeks. Yesterday he did. He was back. He didn't have any sacks or anything like that, but he did impact the games. He did hit the quarterback for the first time in a couple of weeks. It was nice to see that. Deron Payne, he had 4 tackles, no quarterback hits though. Of the sacks that they got, 2 were to Casey Toohill, and 1, I think, was Jamin Davis. Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, John Allen, no sacks. Of a quarterback who threw the ball 47 times. Chase Young had 1 tackle. I got to look how many pressures he had. No quarterback hits. Montez Sweat, who did have to go in and out of the lineup after he hurt his thumb, no quarterback hits. John Allen, 1. Payne, none. The 4 of them collectively hit Ritter once.
Not good.
That's surprising. That's a very good line they were facing. Like when healthy and really going, they're as good as the Eagles and the Lions. They're very good.
With how much money, though, those 4 players are making, you cannot have that type of production. You just can't.
So, again, and they gave up 400 yards to a team that's averaging 16 points a game and shortens games because they run the ball a ton. Atlanta is going to wake up today here wondering how in the world they lost this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, again, while I'm very happy that they won, there's a lot to look at here and go, there's a lot of improvement to be made, a lot. And I'm very happy that they're 3-3, and I hope that they're 4-3 after they play a 1-5 team next week. We'll see. But I count on nothing anymore with them because 1, they've been schizophrenic, and 2, off of this one, there's a lot more to grow from. Their front 4, that is the heart and soul of their team and will carry them as far as they go, did not hit the quarterback yesterday. If I'm telling you, if Cody Barton and Cam Curl, Kendall Fuller are going to be your best players on defense, you're going to lose more than you're going to win.
That's right.
Curl, I've come to expect this. Barton, I'm glad. It's turning for him. Fuller's been really great, underrated, really good for them this year. But that front 4, they need to be the people we're talking about on Monday going, these are the people who flipped the game. And they're not, and they didn't. So something's still up there, and I'll just reiterate, I'm glad they won. And I'm never going to complain about a win because they won. When they got opportunities, a turnover at the 27-yard line, they scored. A 61-yard punt return, they scored. They took advantage of their opportunities. They didn't turn the ball. It's the 3rd time this year they've been on the road and didn't turn the ball over. That's really good. There's a lot of good here, but there is so much more to grow if they're going to be a playoff team. That's my point.
I think what's more frustrating with it, too, is we've seen it already this year. Allen and Payne have good games.
Early in the season, they both did. Yes.
And then it just kind of fell off out of nowhere. Payne, you could argue, was as big of a part of that Broncos comeback than the offense was.
He had a 3-and-out.
Yes.
He had a 3-and-out.
Yes. And so that's what I think is actually more frustrating here is we've literally seen it this season. So what's happening that's shut them down?
He's getting double-teamed a lot. So, but Allen showed up again yesterday. That was good. That's a really good sign. All I'm saying is across the board on offense, we got to figure out how to get Jahan involved. Robinson's got to get the ball more. I think we need to get on the same page collectively. 193 yards ain't going to cut it, right? Defensively, the front 4's got to be collectively better, albeit I thought schematically they were better. They were way better on the edge than they've been in recent weeks. I want to give them credit for doing their job. Barton's improved. Fuller's been very good. They're stabilized with Danny Johnson, even if the propensity for a big play, which is they're hoping from Forbes, isn't quite out there. But they did end up with 3 picks yesterday. They didn't have Forbes out there, and they got the 3 picks that they were looking for. But there's just a lot of room to grow. I'm open to it growing. For them to be a playoff team, it's got to be a lot better on both sides of the ball than this. But if they figure out how to win, winning can become very addictive, and it can be something that can roll downhill. And they are taking on a team that they ought to beat next week. So we'll see. All right, we'll go through the rest of Week 6 next. Bram Weinstein Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.